One trend that is prevalent across all aspects of recreation and park services is the diffusion of technology, in particular information technology. So in this recording, we first define technology and then second end by putting together the idea of diffusion of innovation from the previous recording and technology in the context of recreation and parks. To start, technology, simply put, is science or knowledge put into practical use to solve problems or invent useful tools. Arguably, computers are among the technologies that have most uniformly infiltrated the daily lives of working professionals. And in the last couple of decades, computers have been joined by smartphones as essential tools of professionals and customers alike. So by definition, information technology is a method for dispersion of information within and between organizations. It has the capacity to facilitate the exchange of goods, services, money, and knowledge on a digital basis, and it is the automation of transactions, communication, interaction using computer and exchange technologies for whatever purpose those who are participating intend. IT is separated into hardware and software, hardware as the tool and software as the way it is used. So really, when we think about IT as technology, we're really talking about a mixture of hardware and software, because for people or organizations to adopt technology, they must see at least some degree of benefit, and the tool, the hardware, is useless without a way to use the tool, the software. Just think about cameras as a good example. Nowadays the camera, the hardware, is augmented by the availability of photo editing software like Photoshop, as well as filters on smartphones. Shivers and Halper differentiate IT between electronic data processing and cloud computing. So in essence, EDP is the use of automated methods to process data. EDP enables the so-called big data era, okay, so where increasingly organizations place a high value on the trends and patterns that are established through the computation and analysis of large data sets. Through this week's case study, you will learn firsthand of some of the issues with master computers, which is a concept that already seems really archaic, but the limitations of master computers and multiple site-specific systems and databases develop the need for the ability overall to process, store, and apply system intelligence online, which the authors refer to as cloud computing. But what does this all mean to those working within the recreation and parks field? And what I really like this passage taken from the Shivers and Halper text, which says recreationists are now beginning to understand the way they perform their jobs may hinge less upon their direct expertise in the activities programmed than upon the way a variety of resources like physical, personal, environmental, fiscal, or time resources can be brought together, transformed, examined, reduced, and translated into the kinds of recreational services necessary for the satisfaction of people's needs. And we'll revisit these ideas a little later in the recording when we discuss how technology is changing the role of rec and parks leaders. Nevertheless, I think what this passage does is establish that the recreation and parks field is not immune to the need to adopt technology. Like I mentioned earlier, the recreation and parks field is not immune to technology diffusion, and there are so many examples that I could delve into to kind of evidence that fact, but obviously here I only have a limited amount of time in this short recording just to cover just a couple of examples. This content is taken from the Shivers and Halper text, and it helps you to understand the scope of IT applications in the rec and parks field. These applications reach across finance, HR, planning and construction of facilities, establishing and analysing population data, as well as within programming. The main takeaway here is that innovation and therefore diffusion can take place within and across different functions and units of recreation agencies. Technology is also impacting the role of recreation and parks leaders, and as Brian Stapleton suggests, parks and recreation leaders are expected to be agents of change in the era of digital transformation and be as adept at leading the implementation and management of digital systems as they are knowledgeable about local parks and trail maintenance, which is recapping on a statement made earlier in this recording. Also, Stapleton suggests that citizens want multi-channel digital two-way communications with their municipal leaders to ask questions, make requests, and provide feedback. I think what this article does a good job of discussing is the simultaneous top-down and bottom-up pressures applied on recreation and parks agencies and leaders to adopt technology. One very specific diffusion of technology which has occurred is that of augmented reality, which refers to an interactive experience in which the real-world environment is enhanced by computer-generated perceptual information, often using the senses of sight, hearing, and touch. An example, and as pictured on this slide, is Harry Potter Wizards Unite, which is a location-based AR game. Arguably, these types of innovation implementation have occurred because of the realization that 70% of Americans feel that emerging technology with nature will increase children's desire to go to parks. One of the most popular AR games of the past few years is Pokemon Go. Now, I personally haven't played Pokemon Go, and this is despite my brother's continued efforts to get me involved. According to him, there are Pokemons in the US that can't be caught in the UK, so he's tried on a couple of different occasions now to get me to download the app, and so far I've resisted. But in an article by Dorwood and colleagues, which again is posted on Canvas, the authors discuss the pros and cons from a conservation perspective of this game. And as you can see, in terms of opportunities, the authors suggest people are discovering non-virtual wildlife while playing, and the game also exposes users firsthand to basic natural history concepts such as species, habitat preferences, and variations in abundance. On the other hand, some of the conservation concerns include that the game may create direct negative environmental impacts such as erosion caused by gamers' footfall, and there's also this idea that by promoting the idea of catching creatures that are subsequently used to fight against each other, it may create or reinforce utilitarian exploitative relations between human and non-human nature. Dorwood and colleagues are also not alone in Pokemon Go related research. In fact, there's a growing body of literature dedicated to different aspects of its usage, including impacts on park patronage, as well as how the game engages non-sport youth in physical activity opportunities.